Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Tim Hart, branch manager of Van Dyke Mortgage here in Fort Myers. Welcome to another episode of the HartBeat For Realtors podcast. Thanks for joining us. Got my buddy back, Wayne Salmans, Hero Nation Coaching. What's up, Wayne?
Hey, what's up, my friend? I'm ready for this. I'm excited about this topic.
Yeah, you got me excited about it too, man. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. So the topic, you guys, today, and by the way, if you're first time watching or listening, this podcast, this video is just set up for realtors. So this is specific to you, your business. We're in the mortgage business, but we want to try to add value to your business and, maybe get a few takeaways from what Wayne says, and it helps you guys save time or make more money. And then the topic, Wayne, before we get into who you are and what you do, we're going to be discussing is the 5 decisions that every realtor needs to make. So look forward to hearing about that. But Wayne, before we get into that, buddy, let's hear who you are, what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Man, I love helping people do a couple of things, right? One is, I love helping entrepreneurs and business owners see their greatness and then learn how to tap into that, right? So, and I see it especially with a lot of realtors. They're growing teams, they're growing businesses. They're great at sales. They struggle with, like, how do I lead my people better? Or how do I teach my people mindsets that they've picked up along the way and they don't necessarily know how to teach their people sometimes. So we spend a lot of time on that. The ultimate goal is to, help them get where they want to go faster and with less bruises, right? Avoid some of the dumps in the road. And how can we help somebody get where they want to go in 10 years, in 3 years? And what would that do for their life? So that's a big part of what we're about.
Yeah, I love how you say less bruises, but these bruises, man, help us learn, right, as well. So we don't forget the big bruises.
Amen.
So, well, let's get jamming, man, this topic. So topic you're going to be rolling with today is the 5 decisions every realtor needs to make. So I'll let you take over here and, start doing your thing.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get into this because I think that we hinted at this a little while ago, and every leader or every realtor, you've got to make some big decisions in order for you to have your best life ever, or for this to be the best year of your life. And it's funny because we talked about that the other day, right? What would it take for this to be the best year of your life? And so many people say, if it was going to be the best year of my life, it'd have to be one where I didn't have a bunch of problems, or the kids didn't get sick, we didn't have financial problems or health, or if there are no problems, this might be the best year of your life. And most people reference, if you listen to them talk, they talk about the best year of their life was like when they were in college. And you're going, that's kind of messed up if the best year of your life was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. I have a problem with that, right? Because life should be incredible. And yet here's what the disconnect is. We've been taught this lie that for a great life is a life that's problem-free. Right? Like, and we see it on all the commercials, all the ads, right? Like what the mantra you hear is, you'll be happy when there's no problems. You'll be happy when you're financially secure. You'll be happy when, right? All the stuff. And here's the problem. If my goal is I'll be happy when, I'm never going to freaking be happy. The only time I'm going to be happy is when I'm dead 6 feet under, because I've never met anybody that doesn't have some problems of some kind, right? Everybody does. And here's my perception of this. I believe problems are actually the gateway drug to happiness, which might sound a little odd. Yet when I meet with people and I say, what are you most proud of? Like, and they start telling what they're most proud of is that, like you were just saying about problems or failures, the time they got kicked in the teeth and they figured it out. Or the time they got knocked down and they figured out how to get back up. That big thing that they overcame. And I think we've got to, the first decision we got to make is review or look at, reframe how we see problems, and realize that if you're gonna have an incredible year, you've got to see problems differently than most people do. It's gonna make you a little weird. But here's what I hear all the time. I hear realtors that come to me and they go, man, I can't believe my buyers bought a truck, or I can't believe my buyers had this on their credit score and they didn't even know it, right? All this stuff, right? All these complaints about their buyers with problems. And here's my perception of this. That would be like somebody going to, like a doctor, like I have some doctor clients, right, that coach with me. It would be like a doctor, one of my doctor clients coming to me and going, I can't believe that sick people keep coming to my office. What is wrong with people? And you would go, yes, you're a doctor. Or a mechanic being like, I hate that people keep bringing their broke cars to my shop. You'd be like, that's your gig, right? Like, and I think as realtors, we got to recognize we get paid. Our value is in handling big problems. If people didn't have big problems, we wouldn't have a whole lot of value. And you're going to get paid in proportion to the problems that you solve. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you got to realize, what problems am I going to choose to lean into? And what if I got excited about problems and realized that by handling and addressing problems, that would actually, the byproduct of that is actually happiness and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of spending a year trying to avoid problems. I don't know, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, my thought comes to mind. It's kind of funny, man. It brings me back to my dad, and with problems, because we take the same outlook on it. It's like, you mess up, everyone does. I don't care what they put on Facebook, they mess up. Trust me. And you mess up, and then you learn from it. It always reminds me of my dad when we were kids. It's like, oh, Dad, I hurt myself, whatever. I kicked the chair, I hurt my foot or something. You do something stupid, and then my dad's. I remember him like plain as day. You won't do that again, will you? Like, you learn, right, from your mistakes, your problems, your screw ups.
Yeah.
I always remember that. You won't do that again, will you?
Dude, so huge. And I remember somebody saying the other day, they go, you'll never get experience without experiments.
Yeah.
Like you'll never figure it out without going through it. So I think it's really lean into problems and go, this year, could this, second half of the year, whatever it is, be the best year of my life? That doesn't necessarily mean the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, instead of trying to avoid all the problems, I'm going to be excited that I'm someone that knows how to handle problems and how to help people overcome problems, right? You have a client that has a big problem. Awesome. I handled it. I got paid great money, right? Bring me 5 more people with the same problems. I'd love to help them, right? So totally reframing your view of problems. And then I think the second decision you got to make is, are you going to be in a state of reaction, or are you going to be reactive, or are you going to be proactive? And most people see themselves as proactive, yet if you look at their day, they're living in a state of reaction almost all the time. And I think this is so easy for realtors, right? They show up at the office and they go, all right, what do I need to do today? And then they just get into reaction mode, and they're in reaction mode all day long. And the problem is, if you're consistently in just reaction mode, I think it leads you to feel like a victim, and it messes with your head at a big level. Plus, you're not really on your way to hit your goals. So this year, or the next several months, whatever it is, how much of your time are you going to spend reacting versus being proactive? I love what Zig Ziglar used to say. I believe it was Zig that said, finish your day on paper before you ever start your day. And what he was saying is, like, do you want the day to just show up to you and basically you're a victim of whatever's coming at you, or are you going to show up to the day in a proactive way?
Linda Stray, who's a John Maxwell coach, she's been on as well, has that saying. It's your success is wrapped in your daily agenda.
Yes.
And I think that's John Maxwell. I think that's where she got it from. But like, same thing, man. Like, are you doing and it's all, Wayne, the other thing is, man, is for all of us, reactive, proactive, whatever, and for all of our businesses, it all literally falls down to, are you prospecting every day or not? I mean, like, if you prospect every day, like, most of these problems just go, or they're not as significant. If you're
it's huge. If you do, and that's why I tell a lot of realtors, like, it's sometimes it's tough to control the whole entire day. Like, I get that. Yet, can you control 2 or 3 hours in the morning and get the most important stuff done?
Right.
And it's usually not 18 hours of work. It's usually 2 or 3 hours of focused work that you've got to really nail. So at least that's my take on it.
Yep.
So, yep. And then I think, the third thing the third decision you got to make, if you want to be an incredible realtor this year, if you want to lead a team, if you really want to be a leader, is, are you going to be someone who is limited by your resources, or are you going to be someone who's incredibly resourceful? And kind of going back to that, what are people proud of? Most of the people that I've interacted, you ask them, what are you really proud of? And what they're usually really proud of is the time that they didn't have enough money and they figured it out, or they didn't have enough support and they found out how to do it. They didn't have enough time and they figured it out. So I think you got to ask yourself, are you going to be limited by the apparent resources, or are you going to be wildly resourceful in how you approach the rest of this year? And you see so many people that go, I didn't know how to do it. I asked this person to figure out a way. And you read books on Richard Branson and Apple and all these different guys, and you start seeing even the book that Nike, that Phil Knight put out, right? The Nike guy talked about in his autobiography, all the times that he didn't have enough money, right? Didn't have enough support, didn't have enough whatever it is. and he kept going, he figured it out. And that's ultimately what he was really, really proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never met a successful person that said, man, I just had all the money and all the support and all the time. Like you never hear that. They go, I didn't have enough this, I didn't have enough this, and I figured it out. So ask yourself, are you going to be limited by your resources, or are you going to be someone who's continually resourceful? One of my clients, or one of my friends, actually, John, who's a partner in the Hero Nation coaching company, and he was struggling because so many of his editors would quit at 5 o'clock every day. He was struggling, right? They'd work from 9 to 5, right? Which is normal in America, right?
Right.
He thought outside the box, and what he did was he got editors in almost every time zone around the world. So now he has a project. When he has a project, it's being edited 24 hours a day by different people around the world as it's going. So his company, in essence, now works 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Talk about thinking outside the box. Instead of going, I'm limited by this 9 to 5 thing, he expanded his mind, and now he's having stuff edited 24 hours a day because he's thinking about it differently, and he got really, really resourceful. Make sense?
Yeah, but it also, I was trying to look it up real quick over here. I cannot remember the name. It was like, the book was, I think it was like Inches from Diamonds, or
yeah, 3 Feet from Gold. Is that the one?
Or was it Gold?
3 Feet from Gold. And that's one of them.
Basically, they bought this mine, they mined it for like, years,
yeah.
And they never got anything. They sold it. Someone else bought it and like mined like 2 feet and and hit
Yes.
the gold. Right? I think it was Acres of Diamonds.
Acres of Diamonds. There you go. Yeah.
Acres of Diamonds. Yeah, I just found it. Thank you, Google. Thank you.
Yeah, amen. Yeah. Oh, amen.
Yeah, but that's a that I think all these struggles and stuff we have, like, the breakthrough is on the other side of that, if you want it to be.
Yes. Well, and one of my power questions in that is, and I can't remember who I learned this from. And he said, too often we're asking the question how, and we need to ask the question who more often. I thought it was interesting. He had said, often we go like, hey, I want 100 million followers on Instagram, whatever it is, right? Instead of going, how do I do that? Ask myself, who has done that could help me? Who could help, right? So instead of going, how do I do 100 transactions a year? Who is doing 100 transactions a year that I could just ask questions of and learn, right? So instead of focusing always on the how, which I think is for high achievers, that's our go-to question, more often than not, we need to ask who, and that can be a really liberating and really tap you into resourcefulness. So I love that little distinction that he gave me.
Yeah, and Wayne, what I found in my experience is those people, the who, like, I'll just, my company, for example, I mean, we've had, top producers at Van Dyke every single year that are always there. And, I talk to them, like, hey, what are you doing? What's going on? What did you do with your team here? Whatever it is. And man, whether it's real estate, mortgage, or whatever, the majority of these top producers are people that you think are wildly successful, will freely talk to you and tell you everything they do.
Yeah,
right? Like,
especially if you respect their time and you do something with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're not just, right, we call it don't be an ask hole. And that's someone who just asks questions and it goes down a hole. Like they don't do anything with it. But
right. If you come back like a month later and be like, hey, what about this? And you didn't do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And not from an ego standpoint, but just an asshole. Yep, that's what we call them. And don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Or here, let me Google this for you, right? Like that one.
It's amazing how few questions I get sometimes. You know what I mean? And I don't mean that from an ego standpoint. I just mean that from I'm connected to a lot of really incredible people, and sometimes I'm amazed at the questions I don't get. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, I'm amazed at sometimes the questions I should be asking that I don't ask. So be wildly resourceful, I think is the question.
Okay.
Or the answer right there, right? So, decide how you're going to view problems, decide you're going to be reactive or proactive, and then make the decision to be wildly resourceful, not just limited by your resources.
Got it.
Yep. And then I think there's a couple more, and I think a couple more decisions you've got to make. And
you got 2 more here.
Yeah, most people get this one, but I think it's worth repeating. And this one is realize, you've heard people talk about, but there's an event that happens and then there's an outcome. But somewhere in the middle, there's an event, and then it's the event plus your response that equals the outcome. And I think that we underestimate how much our response dictates the outcome that we have. So this year, as you're going through these next several months, right, there's events that are going to happen, and your response is going to make all the difference on what the outcome actually is. And I think a lot of times about, I don't know if you watched Shark Tank years ago, there was a couple on Shark Tank, and they founded a company called Grace and Lace, and they were telling their story. And what they do is, they started telling the story, and Dave and John or someone said, how did you come up with this company? What are you doing? And they said, a couple years ago, their daughter actually passed away in the night from SIDS, right? Their daughter was, I think, 12 months old, something like that, and just died in the middle of the night, right? Their only daughter. And I can't even imagine how soul crushing that is, right? And somebody that's probably listening or watching this has been through that. And I can't imagine going through that kind of pain, right? And yet what they decided several months later was they go, we want to do something in honor of our daughter. We want to do something for girls to honor our young daughter, Grace, that passed away. And what they did is they started this company, Grace and Lace, and they make like socks and things like that. And almost all the proceeds go to fund orphanages and girls for schools in the lower part of Africa. And they show this picture of thousands of girls getting education and medical and food and all this amazing stuff, right? And it by far doesn't take away the pain of losing your daughter, right? And yet they took that terrible, terrible, horrific experience and their response allowed them to have a really meaningful outcome, right? It wasn't in replace. I'm sure if they could do it over again, they would just keep their daughter, right? And yet their response made all the difference in the world, and now they're changing thousands of lives because they had this really terrible event, and their response made all the difference to the outcome that they're now experiencing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it kind of hits home for me. I got a good friend of mine. His name's Rob Wan, and we've done a podcast with him in an episode of Rates and Reels, my fishing show as well. And his son Caleb passed away from cancer. I think he was 6, I think. And this is years ago. Him and his wife Monique started an entire charity nonprofit called Caleb's Crusade Against Childhood Cancer. And man, it's unbelievable talking to him sometimes of just like, I cry like every single time we talk about his journey with that. Like, I just freaking cry right in front of him. And it's gut wrenching. But the other side of it is what he's done is pretty amazing. He goes to DC all the time. And I didn't even go on a tangent like that, but he's my buddy. And it's pretty amazing what him and his wife have done.
And I think those are really powerful examples. And then it also shows up in our little day stuff, right? Like, you get cut off in traffic, you had an event, your response, like, do I fume in my car for the next 30 minutes about the jerk that cut me off and spend 30 minutes of my life pissed off at somebody that doesn't even know I'm pissed off at them? Or do I just reframe that experience and go, who knows what's going on in his world? Maybe he's driving to the hospital because his wife's there. Who knows what's going on, right?
I say that all the time. I'm like, that person may have something really important or something emergency happening.
Yeah, dude, I was in a class one time, and I don't know if I told you the story. There's a gal we're talking about, hey, if somebody cuts you off in traffic, what could be going on? Or you see someone swerving down the road, right? And everyone's like texting or, they're drunk, whatever it is. And this one gal in the back of the room stood up and she said, she goes, you could be in the back seat giving your daughter CPR and it's not working. And your husband could be in the front seat driving you as fast as he possibly can to the hospital. And she goes, that was me.
Right.
That was us a couple of years ago. And I'll tell you, I've never seen a car swerve again and thought about it the same way that I did before. Right.
Yeah. Well,
down the road. And I'll tell you what, my experience has totally changed, because I've chose to reframe my response, and the outcome has led to a different life for me, Yeah. And I didn't mean to go there, but let's go here for 1 second, because I think this will be powerful. This is and I'll share this with you. So if you're watching this, go to the page and download this from the notes. But there's this thing here where it talks about like being a victim and a victor. And I'll share this with you later, Tim, but I was thinking about this, we were talking. And what's interesting is you look at a victim and all this terrible stuff has happened. And then you look at a victor and the same stuff has happened. We've all been abused. We've all suffered loss. We've all been rejected. We've all been mistreated. We've all had crap happen in our lives, right? But the difference is the victim feels helpless, alone, trapped, vulnerable, angry, depressed, right? All of these things. This is their response, right? The victor asks for help. They seek healthy relationships. They plan ahead. They talk it out, right? They desire healing. They admit their mistakes, right? Same crap happened to both people. But their response, how they view it, makes all the difference in the world, which leads to who they become and ultimately what begins to happen in their life, right? Who they become. The victim becomes insecure, defensive, low self-esteem, closed-minded, controlling, all this other stuff, which leads to them to need to medicate to relieve the pain, which means they yell and scream at people, or they use substance abuse, or all this stuff, right? The victor, right, becomes better. He gets better at tough conversations. He gets better at reframing his world. They get better at all these things. They build great friendships, all this stuff. And then their experience at the end, right, is completely different. So I think this is a really powerful thing to look at every once in a while. And if I was going to leave you with a fifth decision, it would be, I think that I thought years ago that I was making a decision one time to be a victim or a victor. What I've realized is it's more of a daily thing, right? Like every day I've got to choose, right? Do I feel trapped and helpless, or do I ask for help? All right. And I think every day I have to make the decision to be a victor, because my default, right, what most of us learned growing up was to just be a victim, right? We learned blame it on other people. It's not your fault, right? Whatever it is. And every single day you have to make the choice of, am I going to be a victim or a victor in this situation? Am I going to take partial responsibility, or am I going to take full responsibility for what's happening in my life? And full responsibility Will Smith did a great video about this. He said full responsibility doesn't necessarily mean the event was your fault, but it means you take full responsibility for your response and your reaction, right? It's not always your fault, but you are 100% responsible for what you do next.
Yep. Gotcha. And I'll put that, if you can send me that, man, I'll put that for the podcast listeners. I'll throw that in the notes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really powerful. So
cool. Number 5.
That's so number 5 is the plan to get back up. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think a little bit, but do you have a plan to get back up when stuff does happen? When you get in the bad day, when you lose a bunch of transactions, all that stuff throughout this year, do you have a plan to get back up when you get knocked down a little bit or when stuff happens? So, and I've shared with you those questions, and I'll share them again if you want, but just, do you have effective questions you ask yourself? What I realized is if I'm feeling a little bit in victim mode, if I ask myself the right questions, it'll help me reframe my experience. It'll help me get resourceful. It'll help me choose my response and become a victor. And I think it's so true that your recovery time this year is going to be a huge indication of the kind of year you end up having, right? The kind of experience you have. So, choose your problems, or choose how you view problems, right? Mm-hmm. Choose to be proactive instead of reactive. Be resourceful instead of limited by your resources, right? Choose your response, right? Figure out how am I going to be a victim or a victor on a daily basis, and then choose to get back up. How do I recover quickly? And I think underneath all of this goes back to what we were talking about the other day, which is high achievers, really successful people have a plan and a process to do this stuff. They don't just wing it. Which is why I sent you the questions, which is why, I wrote the book, is because I want people to have a system and a plan to get back up. So they're not just winging it. Does that land?
Yep. No, I love it, man. I love it. Wayne, you killed it, man, as usual.
Thanks for having me on here, man. I so appreciate what you're doing for the real estate industry. And I think what's cool is how many lives you're touching outside of your world. You know what I mean? I think it's cool that you're doing this podcast, not just for your 5 or 6 people, right? In your 30 agents right there. But this is touching people all over the place. And I just appreciate you doing that for the real estate community, man.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, we gotta try to provide value out there at some point. So this is just one little thing we do. And to be honest, man, it's fun. I learned so much doing this with you guys, because I keep saying it, but our businesses, they mesh, man. We're all sales, customer service. So.
Well, and yeah, a lot of people talk, especially a lot of lenders, they talk about value, but you're actually delivering it. So, so kudos to you, man. Thanks for doing it.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, Wayne. So, anyone wants to connect with you, how do they do it?
Yeah, a couple ways. If you find that you're struggling with one of these mindset topics or one of these decisions, if you find going into victim mode, or you're really struggling to get your team to understand these concepts, reach out to me. Let's talk about if you're ready to to have a coaching conversation, right? Ready if you're ready to level up and experience some of the bruises. Like Eleanor Roosevelt said, you won't live long enough to make all the mistakes yourself, so you better learn from other people. So if you're interested in that, right, go to theheronation.com and let's have a call. And also go to the other group that Tim and you love is Real Talk for Real Estate Pros on Facebook. Phenomenal group. Go request to join that. Really a high level conversations. It's all the brilliance without the BS. So I'd love to have you on there.
Cool, man. Well, you guys want to connect with Wayne? He gave you, where to go. We'll put it in the show notes as well. If you need anything from me, if I can ever help you guys out, you got topics you want to hear about, right? Like that we can discuss. Let me know. I'm here to help, serve. Let's connect on social media, right? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it, we're there. If you're watching this video, please like, share, and subscribe. We would appreciate it. Podcast listeners, make sure you please subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all that fun stuff. And, dude, while you're there, just throw us a review. It's a cool thing to do, right, Wayne? They should do that.
Yes. It's like 18 years good luck or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Every star brings you another year.
Yes, amen.
So, Wayne, again, appreciate you guys. Listeners, thank you for watching. Hope this brings value to your business. Again, so have fun killing it. Thanks, guys. Thanks again, Wayne. Take care, buddy.
Thank you, brother.
See you, man.